let's understand about the limitations of using default VPC. So the very first one is its global scope. Okay, so the default VPC is global, which means it spans all the GCP regions. While this can be advantageous in terms of connectivity, but it might lead to increased complexity and potential security concerns, especially if you want to enforce a regional isolation. Maybe we can just check it parallelly. So I just came to my Google Cloud Console. Let's go to VPC network just to understand about that, the limitations due to its global scope. So if you see here, I have 42 subnets. All right, let me get into this subnets that is associated to this default VPC. So if you see here, this default VPC is span to across all these regions. Okay, just consider a situation or a scenario that I want to deploy my application only only at one region or one or two region at US East. Okay, just consider that my customers are very close to US region and I would like to deploy my application only in this two region. Okay, so in that case, having these many other sub networks are not required, right? It is not required. It is unnecessary. Okay, because as per my requirement, my customers are available only near to this two regions or this three regions, let's consider. Okay, so I'm planning to deploy my applications, the VM instance, only in this regions. So in that case, I have totally 42 subnetworks that is assigned to this default VPC. Out of this 42 subnetworks, I just want to use only 3 subnetworks. So almost some 39 subnetworks are waste, right? It's not required, I would say. So it is one of the complex. It's very complex to maintain. All right, and also it has some limitations. So it's like you cannot delete it. So you cannot delete it. Okay, even if you say for example, okay, let me get into this. If I want to delete it, considering that anyway it's not going to be used, if I just click here, I don't see the option to delete the unwanted subnetworks. Okay, so this is one of the major limitation due to its global scope. Then the second limitation is its limited customization option. So the default VPC is designed for simplicity and ease of use, right? But it might lack the level of customization that's required for complex network architecture. If in case your project demands a specific IP ranges, subnet, or any advanced configuration, then the default VPC may be restrictive, which means that, let me just, so as I said, you cannot customize at all. Though, as I said earlier in the first point, you cannot delete the unwanted subnets. And also the second point is lack of customization. You cannot customize it. Even for example, if you just consider that you don't want this subnet, or you want to use a different subnet for this particular region. Okay, if you just come here, maybe if you're trying to maybe just put some 250, okay, or some 25, or maybe okay 250, but see, it's telling new IP serial should be a superset of, means basically it will not allow. And one thing is possible, that is by default it will come along with /20 subnet, and you can make it up to /16. That is possible, but you cannot change the complete subnet because these subnets are allocated by default as a non-overlapping subnet to each regions. Okay, so not only about the subnets, in also there are multiple limitations as like in terms of customization. Okay, even if I go to the other region, I'll just come here. So if you see here, it is 10.140.0.0/20, right? And if I go here, if I make this as /16, it will work. Means you can do that, but see, it's getting updated, right? But you cannot change the entire subnet here as per your project requirement, because your project might be requiring some specific IP subnets, but that is not possible. This is one of the major disadvantage, right? So it's still updating. Let's wait for a few more seconds. So once it's updated, it would be gray out. All right, then see, now it's updated with /16. But at the same time, if you want to further increase it, just consider that maybe if I put /12, or see, it will never allow you. So you can use up to /16. By default it will allow up to /20, or else if you want to as I said earlier, means that we have already seen, if you want to use some other subnet, it's not possible. Okay, because this is the default subnet that's planned and assigned to this region by Google itself. So this is one of the limitation that comes under the lack of customization. So the third point is address range limitation. So that also we have already discussed, that the default, but it has another context also. The default VPC comes with a predefined IP address range. If this range conflicts with your existing on-premises network, or if they do not meet your specific addressing requirement, that could be a limitation. So we have discussed this in the last point as well. Basically, it's pointing to the same thing, like you cannot modify the entire subnet. Okay, even though it's getting conflict with your on-premises network, there is the limitation. So in that case, you should go with the custom VPC instead of default VPC. All right. So the fourth point is security concerns. So the default firewall rules in the default VPC are relative permissive to ensure broad compatibility. So depending on your security posture, these rules might need adjustment to adhere to specific compliance standard or internal security policy. So if you remember, we have already discussed this point when we are discussing about the VPC overview, right? So we have told that whenever we create a new VPC, or whenever a new default VPC is created, it comes along with the default firewall policy. Like I have also shown you the 4 policies, right? The RDP, ICMP, and all. So we have already checked that. So it means that it gives you a very broad compatibility, right? It gives you a basic rules, and you need to modify it accordingly if you want to strengthen the security. All right. So this is one of the limitation of using the default VPC, and as I said, if you want to strengthen it, then you should add more firewall rules. So next one is cross project connectivity. If you need to connect resources across a different project, the default VPC might not be the best choice. Setting up a VPC network peering or using a shared VPCs might be more suitable for such scenarios. All right, this is one of the other limitations. Then the lack of isolation controls. The default VPC is designed to be a straightforward, but it might lack the granularity that need for straight isolation between different parts of your infrastructure. This could be concerns in environment with stringent security or compliance requirement. The other one is scalability challenges. Okay, for larger or more complex deployment, the default VPC might face scalability challenges. If your project grows significantly, you may need to migrate to the custom VPC with more scalability configurations. So this also we have already seen, like means you cannot increase your subnet also. Okay, so when your project is growing, when your environment is growing big, and you need to move it to the custom. All right, then limited routing options are same as the firewall options. The default VPC is also having a limited routing options. It comes with a predefined set of routes. If your application requires a specific routing configuration, such as custom route prioritization or VPN configuration, you may find the default VPC is limiting it. Then the last and the very important one is resource naming restriction. So the naming convention with the default VPC may be a generic and not aligned with your organization standards. This can lead to confusion, especially in a larger project, a big projects with a multiple team working concurrently, right? We have already seen that, right? So when you see the name of the VPC, it mentioned as like default, and also if you look at all the available regions or the subnetworks, that also named as default. So it would lead you to a confusion, right? So which is what, and it will not be aligned with your company's organization's naming convention. So this is one of the biggest limitation, I would say. All right, so these are all the limitations of the using default VPCs.